She was his lover and his mate, the love of his life. She'd search for him and never give up, despite their weakened link and his deep underground location. But she was first and foremost a vampire lord, lord of the Canadian territories, one of the most powerful vampires in North America and the world. She'd understand better than most that his kidnapping was a ploy to distract her from the defense of her territory, and she wouldn't fall for it. Sophia would hold her people together, and she'd defeat those who thought to take her territory by force. Then, she'd crush the traitorous bastard standing in front of him into dust. Colin only hoped he'd live long enough to see it, or hell, just long enough to see her one more time, even if it was only to kiss her goodbye. Chapter 1. Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Sophia stood in the elevator, the cold of the brushed steel wall behind her seeping into the muscles of her back. She should probably move, but found herself strangely unmotivated. She needed to focus, to put her game face on, or one of those other sports analogies that men were so fond of, the ones they used to hype themselves up for a challenge. There would be no challenges tonight from any side, but she still needed to play her part. She was a vampire lord. She couldn't afford to appear weak or indecisive, especially not in the midst of what Colin would call a vampire sausage fest. All male and all powerful didn't begin to describe the alpha vampires waiting for her in the downstairs conference room, including the most alpha of them all, Raphael. She sighed inwardly as the elevator slowed to a stop. Her bodyguard, Eleanor, stepped in front of her as the doors slid open to reveal a pair of her own vampires waiting in the corridor just outside. She'd brought the guards with her from Vancouver because she'd wanted to be certain of their loyalty, or at least more certain than she was of any of the Toronto vampires. They officially owed her the same allegiance as those in Vancouver, but one could excuse her for doubting their loyalty just now. Eleanor eyed both of the waiting guards carefully before stepping out of the elevator and moving immediately to one side, making room for Sophia to exit into the hallway. Eleanor was the only female vampire on her security detail. She was an incredibly strong one, in terms of pure physicality. That was her gift. Rather than vampiric power, she was also fearless, intelligent, and completely loyal. Plus, it was nice to have another female around. No matter what anyone said, women and men simply didn't think the same way. Sometimes, when Sophia was enduring yet another endless meeting, it was everything she could do not to look at Eleanor and roll her eyes, knowing the other female would understand the sentiment perfectly. Eleanor hadn't been selected as Sophia's bodyguard because of her sex, however. She'd won her position by triumphing over every other candidate in a series of brutal trials, organized by Colin specifically for the purpose of filling out Sophia's security detail. He'd been pleased when Eleanor had come out ahead of all the others, seeming to understand even before Sophia herself that a female presence would be useful. That was Colin. He was far more perceptive about people than she was. That thought nearly made her smile, until the most recent images she'd had of him shoved their way to the front of her brain, wiping out everything else, triggering a pang of fear that squeezed her heart. Before the events of this last month, she'd have sworn that every member of their carefully chosen security detail was loyal. Now, she didn't trust anyone except Eleanor. And that was why this meeting was necessary. Eleanor leaned close as they walked down the hallway. "They're all waiting in the conference room, my lady." Sophia nodded wordlessly. The stakes tonight were too high, the personalities too touchy, and the vampires too damn powerful to contemplate eye-rolling or anything else. She steeled herself for what she had to do, and stepped into the conference room, pausing in the doorway to study her fellow vampire lords. Standing on the other side of the room,